Welcome to the Pitcher Nail Down. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11. With me is Nick Tasso at the Inefficient 2. Taking a look at the Monday slate here for pitching on FanDuel and DraftKings. It's Kershaw Day, but we do have some other notable names kind of behind him. And a relatively, I think it's a weak pitching slate, more top-heavy than anything, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot of guys over 10K on both sites. And then you just kind of got like a garbage bin for most of the rest of the pitchers. So it's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, definitely. And jumping right into things here, you got Giants and Pirates in PNC Park, Madison Bumgarner versus Jeff Locke. San Francisco minus 183 favorites there, over under 7. You look at this Pirates team, they're kind of up and down. They got a lot of key guys struggling. Marte out of the lineup. McCutchen hasn't really looked like himself this year. They also have a big strikeout rate against Southpaws this year, 24.8%. And Bumgarner kind of comes in for me as a really strong option. Obviously, he's not Kershaw, but as far as a win goes, he's a safer option than Kershaw. And I still think that strikeout rate and upside's pretty much there today.
Yeah, I agree with you there. You look at him his last few starts, 8 strikeouts, 5, and then 11 before that. And he's just been really dominant. Pittsburgh, like you said, struggling right now with the health of their roster and just having guys in there who actually are being productive at the moment. And the game's at PNC, so that definitely is going to boost Madison Bumgarner a little bit. So I definitely like him here. And I kind of agree with you. He's doesn't have the huge upside as Kershaw, but I think very similar floors from both these two guys. And he's a little bit cheaper, so you kind of pivot off him.
Yeah, I really don't have a problem coming off of Kershaw and going down to Bumgarner. I mean, for that price tag, it's different. You're going to have to be stingy with value bats anyway, so I think kind of you pull a little bit more cash away from him. And I really don't have a problem spending down. I think you can kind of make a case for Bumgarner over Kershaw here.
Yeah, and I think Bumgarner, too, most likely will be in line for the win going up against Jeff Locke compared to Kershaw, who has Strasburg. So I think it's not really a lock for Kershaw to get the win.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think that's kind of that factor that's making me choose Bumgarner over Kershaw just a little bit there.
Yeah, absolutely. And the price difference, too, it does kind of matter because it's kind of a smallish slate with not as many good bats, and you kind of have to ration your salary.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we were talking on the slate breakdowns, and it was like if you want to get some exposure to, Seattle against Pelfrey or the Sox against Miguel Gonzalez, if you want to get one of those bats in, you may have to do that.
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
Yeah. And on the other side there, I mean, Jeff Locke, not really a guy who's in play. Yes, he's pitched better at home. But overall, I mean, against this Giants offense, it's just still a stay-away situation.
Absolutely. You look at the Giants, they do have a lot of lefties, but they have a lot of righties who can also hurt them as well. But Locke's one of those guys he's been pretty bad against both righties and lefties this year. So I still think some of the lefties in this lineup could do some damage against him too. So staying far away from this matchup.
Yeah, guys like Crawford and Belt have, held their own against lefties in the past. So I think it's going to be kind of a rough situation for Locke.
Yeah, Belt's hitting, I believe, over or close to 300 against lefties, and being a lefty himself, that's pretty good.
Yeah, definitely, and I mean, he's coming off a big series in Tampa as well.
Absolutely.
Next game here, you got the White Sox and Red Sox. Miguel Gonzalez versus Stephen Wright. Over under of 10. Boston minus 183 favorites. Wright's been a really consistent arm this year. I'm not in love with the recent price tags for him, especially on a slate like tonight where I really do think you're going to need that Bumgarner Kershaw type upside to carry most of your lineups. And that's where Wright kind of gets lost for me, even though it is a good spot. He's pitched well against Chicago, before in the matchup. But at the recent price tags, I can't really get behind him anymore.
Yeah, that price tag of DraftKings over 11,000 is just it's way too high. He's a solid pitcher, and he should have a really good outing here. But at that price tag, it's really hard to justify paying for him. You look at the White Sox lineup, and yeah, they've struggled a lot, but the majority of them are righties, and that's kind of where knuckleball pitchers historically have struggled against same-handed bats. So it does give me a little caution there. And with that price tag being what it is, it just definitely kind of makes me stay away.
Yeah, definitely. And, kind of look at the price tag on FanDuel as well. I really don't think he's worth even a single bullet at 9,400. And as you mentioned, I mean, those White Sox team are heavily right-handed. It's also going to be their second time seeing him for what it's worth. Um, I think he's just kind of off my radar here.
Yeah, like I said, he's probably gonna have a good outing. It's just at this price tag and the other options on the slate, it's probably gonna go somewhere else.
Yeah, definitely. And on the other side, I mean, there's a reason why this over-under is 10, and that's because Miguel Gonzalez is pitching against the Red Sox. So an easy stay away.
Absolutely.
Next one here, you got the Rays and Indians. Josh Tomlin versus Drew Smiley in Cleveland there, over-under of 8. Cleveland small favorites, -123. I'm the biggest – I'm not a big fan of Josh Tomlin. I mean, his indicators as far as – an 8-1 record, a mid-3 ERA. I think it's really misleading for what type of pitcher he is. A 4.22 Sierra, a really low swing strike rate of 7, and even against the Rays offense that's been up and down this year, hasn't really been great against righties, is still not on my radar. I can't get behind Tomlin.
Yeah, you look at his price tag; it's up there too, and that's just one reason why I'm staying away from him. Basically, for all the reasons you said, even though it is mainly a right-handed lineup for the Rays, it's still kind of one that is kind of dangerous at times. And Tomlin, he really hasn't been that good than what his numbers would suggest. So I agree with you there. I'm staying away from him as well.
Yeah, I mean, 37% hard ball rate allowed. It's concerning. I think that regression game's really coming soon. And I'm kind of hoping it's against the Rays because you can kind of get them at some decent price tags tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you too. And on the flip side, I'm a sucker for Drew Smiley at that price on DraftKings. 6,700 that's just crazy. I know he hasn't pitched like he used to, but he still has a lot of potential there. He had 12 strikeouts last time out, so there's a good amount of upside there for GPPs.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, he's coming off a great start where he had 12 strikeouts. I mean, 19 in the last 2 there. And against a good Seattle team. And I kind of look at that Seattle team. I mean, they got a couple right-handers that can do some damage. And it's kind of a similar thing with Cleveland here. But they do have some left-handed bats that you can take away. And overall, I mean, Cleveland, not that great against lefties as far as a whole this year. 20th in WOBA, 21.4% strikeout rate. So, as you mentioned, that price tag is really intriguing.
Yeah, absolutely. My only concern is that it's away from the drop. Progressive field, a little bit more conducive for batters. So it's kind of a little hesitation, but you might as well take a few stabs with them at that price tag.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, you go back, earlier this season, he struck out 11 against Cleveland. So definitely has that upside.
Yeah, the potential's still there. He's just one of those guys who hasn't been able to put it together. Him and Matt Moore, just everything I think is still there, and they just, for whatever reason, haven't been able to be the older pitchers than they used to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's just this season it's going to be which one shows up. Next game here, you got the Mariners and Tigers. Nate Carnes versus Mike Pelfrey. Over-under of 10, another double-digit over-under. Seattle -119 favorites. And as a whole, I think a lot of people are going to be looking at this game for offense, really trying to get some value, even some top bats in it. And with those two arms, I mean, Carnes has pitched well this season at times. But for me, it's just a stay away for pitchers.
Yeah, I agree with you. I could kind of think about Carnes a little bit on DraftKings, price a little bit lower. Detroit bats mainly right-handed. He's done a little bit better against them this year, and they were pretty quiet yesterday. So I do like him, but at the same time, if I were going to use drop down for a pitcher like that, I'd probably just go with Smiley. So I'm, like you, going to stay away from both these starters. Pelfrey for obvious reasons.
Yeah, definitely. And as you mentioned, I think kind of, Smiley takes those guys kind of out of play.
Yeah, just because where they're priced around, you might as well pay because Smiley is the better pitcher. It's just he's in a funk right now, and you kind of, these are the times where you're gonna kind of take the risk and hope that the productiveness out of a good pitcher really is there in one start.
Yeah, definitely. Next one here, you get the Rockies and Marlins. Jorge De La Rosa versus Paul Clemens. Over/under of 8.5. This game is a pick 'em. Overall, I mean, the series has been relatively low scoring, I guess you could say, kind of mid-tier. But both these pitchers, I mean, on this size slate, it's kind of just get lost for me. I don't feel like really digging down and even taking shots on them.
Yeah, I mean, there's no real point to right now to take shots on them. You look at who the other pitchers to select tonight, and you might as well pay up for one of them and then go in the mid tier for one or two guys. The price tags on these guys are low, but it's just the matchup isn't ideal. The ballpark's good, but it's just one of those iffy kind of games I really don't feel too great about.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, really, that game might be kind of a total stay away, maybe outside of maybe a couple of Marlins right-handers.
Yeah, because you're really unsure what's going to happen. I mean, Clemens could come out here and have a good game. It's just there's too many variables with these two teams right now in that ballpark.
Yeah, definitely. I think the only guy, I mean, Carlos Gonzalez is like 3,800 on DK. He's probably the only guy that I'll definitely be taking a look at for Colorado.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like Gonzalez.
Next one here, you have Orioles and Rangers, Kevin Gausman versus Derek Holland. In Global Life, 9.5 over under. Baltimore small favorites, -113. And I'm looking for here for a lot of offense. You got Adam Jones who's kind of heating up. Trumbo's hit lefty as well. And really just a Orioles team that is filled with a lot of right-handed bats, and I think that's kind of worrisome for Holland.
Yeah, I agree with you there. You look at this Orioles team, they have Trumbo, they have, I know Machado's out, but they still have Adam Jones, they have Scoop, and even Chris Davis, he could still connect with one here against Derek Holland. And the ballpark is just really bad for pitchers. So I'm definitely staying away from Holland here. And on the flip side, too, with Gausman, it's just one of those things is I can't really see myself playing either of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, Gausman's a guy who I've taken a couple of chances on this season, and obviously this wouldn't be a spot to do that with, but he really hasn't looked that great. He hasn't really pulled everything together. He flashes, the upside every now and then, but in this matchup, at those Rangers prices for bats too, I think this one is just another offensive game to target.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I was a huge Gausman fan last year when he was in that really good stretch he was having, striking out so many batters, but just looks like he's kind of lost it at this point midway through 2016 season.
Yeah, definitely. And moving on to the next one here, you have the Cardinals and Cubs, Jaime Garcia versus John Lackey. No line out yet for this one, but got to imagine Lackey is a decent mid-range favorite. He's another guy who the price, you look at a matchup against the Cardinals who, are relatively high offense. This game's kind of a stay away for me for pitchers. I just think with their prices, I like too many of the other top options better.
Yeah, I agree with you there. For Lackey, I just think it's a bad matchup with all the lefties in that St. Louis Cardinals team. And then on the other side with Jaime Garcia, it's dangerous team with the Cubs, even though they do have a decent amount of lefties, but a lot of guys switch over as well. The only way I could possibly think would be playing Garcia on DraftKings because he's only 5,700. And I know he hasn't been that good, but over his career, he's been a much better pitcher than what he's doing right now.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you are looking at the recent stretch here, and he's been a cheap guy. Didn't pitch bad in that Houston game, worked into the sixth. It was kind of that Cincinnati game that really threw me off when he gave up 13 hits. So kind of a boomer bust guy, I think, for today's slate. But, price considered if you wanted to pair him up with a Kershaw and trying to get a decent 15 points out of him, it's definitely worthy of a look.
Yeah, that price tag for me is just way too low for him.
Yeah, I think so too. Outside of that, I mean, for that game, I mean, overall, is it kind of a stay away as far as altogether outside of Garcia hitters as well?
Yeah, I'm thinking of that. It's just one of those games where it could be a low scoring one, or it could be one of those where one of these pitchers just drops a huge egg and there's so many runs, and it's really too unsure what it's going to be. Both these squads are pretty good, so it's kind of hard to really gauge it.
Yeah, definitely. Look on the next one here at the Angels and Astros. We have Chacin versus Doug Fister. 8.5 over under there. Houston -140 favorites. Fister's pitched pretty well, but he's one of those guys who has been overachieving. But really, he hasn't shown up that big blow-up factor. 7,800 on DraftKings is kind of enticing as an SP2 option. I mean, a decent favorite. This Angels offense is middle of the road. I mean, Fister's smart enough to kind of work around those guys in that middle of the lineup, and I can see him kind of working as maybe a 6 innings, 3 earned runs, maybe gets a win type of deal.
Yeah, absolutely. You look on the other side with Shashin, and he's one of those guys who he's not terrible, but he doesn't do much. And with the way that the Angels' offense is, they could only score a couple runs, and that might not be enough for Shashin to kind of take the win. And you look at Fister, his offense could kind of really go off, and that could help him out comparative going up against Shashin. So I definitely like Fister here, just because that factor. He hasn't been great, but he's just a guy who, like you said, he hasn't had a blow up factor. He's just middling through, doing 6 innings and getting 5 strikeouts or so and calling it a day. So
yeah, definitely. I think that's kind of all you need when you're pairing him up with a Bumgarner or Kershaw. Kind of, he's there for salary relief, and if you can get that 15-point base, you're in good shape.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at the Angels, and they can have some good games, but most games they kind of only scored 2 runs or so, and they're not really an explosive offense.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of look, I mean, they had a nice little streak there, but they're kind of back down to where they were last 2 weeks, 21st in offense. So haven't really been particularly thrilling. As far as Chacin goes, I mean, that price tag, it's intriguing just because there is some strikeout upside there with the Houston bats. You look at them, I mean, over the last 2 weeks, they haven't been great, 26th in WOBA. And against right-handers this year, they're subpar, 25% strikeout rate. So GPPs, you can make a case just because there is some strikeout upside.
Yeah, my only thing with Chacin is the only one game that we saw Chacin actually have more than 4 strikeouts was against Detroit in a complete game. So it's really far and few between when he kind of gets the strikeouts going. And I'm pretty sure when he threw against Detroit with those 10 strikeouts, that was kind of in the midst of them striking out so much within like a week span.
Yeah, definitely. And it is such a boomer bust type play. But I think at the price tag, I mean, it's a reasonable option. I mean, there are pluses for him to kind of go out and throw a 5+ strikeout game.
No, absolutely, because like you said, Houston is one of those teams that at any moment could just go quiet and just strike out.
Yeah, definitely. And move on to the next game here. I mean, this is it. You got the Nationals and Dodgers, Steven Strasburg versus Clayton Kershaw. And this is going to be a fun one to watch. It's on ESPN, so I'll definitely be tuned into that one. Overall, I mean, we talked about Kershaw. I mean, not a lock for a win here. He's also 14-2 on DraftKings, 13K on FanDuel. Definitely going to give you a safe floor. And this is where I think the debate kind of goes is, are you going to spin down a Bumgarner, kind of over Kershaw? Or are you just going to kind of rely on him just because he's been that safe guy all year?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really a roster construction. If I'm able to get away with Kershaw and use that extra 1,000 on FanDuel to have Kershaw in my lineup and it doesn't really hurt me at all the other positions, I'm going to go with him. But if I need to kind of save somewhere, that probably might be where I cut first.
Yeah, and I think on DraftKings, I mean, obviously 14-2 is expensive, but a win on FanDuel, I mean, it's an extra 12 points. It's still a little bit weighted, a little bit more heavier in comparison to kind of, measuring pitchers. DK, I mean, if he gets that strikeout upside and does miss out on a win, he can still pull off big numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at this Washington offense, and they really haven't shown much. They have spurts every once in a while, but it's not one of those offenses that's like a consistent team that attacks pitchers.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, on the other side, I mean, Strasburg's been very solid this year. I like the price tag more of a difference on FanDuel, where he's 10-8 in comparison to Bumgarner, who's 12, Kershaw, who's 13. DraftKings, he's not really on my radar, but kind of a really contrarian option, because if you look at this Dodgers offense, yes, a couple of guys have started to hit well, but for the majority of the season, I mean, in the bottom half, they've carried a league average strikeout rate, and Strasburg's been pretty dominant in that K department.
Yeah, absolutely. Strasburg has a really nice matchup here, but I kind of have the same issues as you do. You look at his price on DraftKings and only $1,000 less, 13-2. And if you look at his game log, his production really hasn't matched warranting that price. He's more near the 10,000 range, and it's just to me is way overpriced on DraftKings. But like you said, there's a decent difference on FanDuel where he's kind of appealing to play. He'll probably be really low owned just because everyone is going to be going for Kershaw, and nobody wants to have Kershaw and Strasburg. One, they can't afford it, and two, it just wouldn't make sense because you're not guaranteed 2 wins there. So I agree with you. I think Strasburg is in a very unique situation where you'll probably get him. I would say probably 10% owned.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Less.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that's kind of what you're shooting for. It's definitely a contrarian move, and it's not really a small slate, but I think just pitching wise, it's really limited. So those swords are kind of going to be, they're going to make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And just on DraftKings alone, that price difference with Strasburg, only $1,000. I think people are going to avoid that and would go more towards Bumgarner. So that's even probably going to bring his ownership level down even lower.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. Overall, I mean, it's a top-heavy slate, and as you said earlier, I mean, it's going to be one of those things where I think lineup construction-wise and when lineups rot and what value pops up is where you really make the difference for pitching.
Yeah, so at most days you can kind of pick 2 or 3 or 4 pitchers that you like and then just kind of fit them in with what bat you like. But on this slate, I think you really need to be pinching your pennies and pick your starters very, very stingy. And then
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And that's going to wrap things up here with the pitcher. Yeah, me. Sorry, you cut out for a little bit.
no worries.
That's going to wrap things up here with the pitcher nail down. Be sure to check out DaveFantasyCafe.com for all our great tools and content.